Cool, let's get going. That sound great? Am I okay to start early? Thumbs up from AV guys? Love it, fantastic. Hello, and welcome to Comic-Con Saturday morning. Good morning, everybody. This is the Tabletop Publishing Getting Onto Store Shelves panel. In this panel, we are going to talk about kind of like the work through in like harder questions on taking your product and getting it into retail, getting it into distribution. How should you be prepping? What's going on? We have a fantastic panelist list here. We'll be doing some questions and a Q&A. I'm Ross Thompson. I'm the Director of Marketing at Atomic Mass Games. We do the miniatures for Star Wars and Marvel. I've worked in the space for about 15 years. I also run the Tabletop Game Jobs group on Facebook and a couple of those things. And then I've been crowdfunding for over 15 years, so with things like Zombicide, and then most recently I ran the Leaving Grand Festival on BackerKit, so a lot of fun stuff there. I'll pass out to our panelists, and please say who you are and what you do. Carol.
Okay, I'm Carol Rapp. I'm from Germany, actually. And there I'm the host of the world's largest tabletop show, which is Spiel Essen. Before that, I was working in the industry, in the tabletop industry for more than 20 years. On the publishing and distribution side, so I know it pretty well from the inside out, but was always working more on the marketing stuff, event stuff, than actually in the development part. But nevertheless, I saw a lot of great games in that time and how to publish them and how to bring them to the market. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm Scott Boor, and I'm a category manager at GTS Distribution. That is a nationwide hobby distributor, so we carry everything from sports trading cards to TCGs, board games, RPGs, minis, supplies, dice and accessories, anything that goes along with tabletop, we're selling it. And if you're not familiar with distribution, distribution is the tier that buys from the publishers and then sells to the retailers. So when you go into your friendly local game store, they bought their product most likely from a distributor. There are other cases as well, but yeah, I've been doing this for 8 years, and prior to that I was in sales for GTS, so I was working on the retail side. Now my job is much more on the vendor side, so I deal with a lot of publishers like Katie and Chris here.
Awesome, thank you, Scott.
Hi everyone, I am Katie Lowther. I'm the Retail Partnerships Manager at Critical Role in Darrington Press. I've been in the industry for a little over 13 years now, and from the publisher side. So I work directly for the publisher, selling our products into distribution partners like GTS, but also directly into brick and mortar stores. So I've spent 13 years growing direct to retail sales for publishers, whether it is small mom and pops or nationwide chains like Barnes & Noble and Target and Amazon. And then this year, or last year rather, for Critical Role and Darrington Press, I started selling directly to international stores. Ooh. So I've opened up the UK, the EU, Australia, and Canada. So definitely a different experience trying to meet the needs of mom and pop stores outside of the US, because there's different territories have different shopping habits and they have different needs from a retail space, and that is what I do. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris O'Neill. I'm CEO of Brotherwise Games. We are a boutique games publisher, best known for maybe Boss Monster, Call to Adventure, and the Brandon Sanderson Cosmere games, including the RPG, which will be launching soon. We actually got started as two brothers with a game idea back in 2012, sat down, made the game, and then sort of our story just unfolded from there to the point that now I get to work with folks like Scott and with pretty much the entire industry ecosystem as we think of it in terms of getting games into stores.
So, as you're kind of going with a nice range from across the space here, what are some of the first steps a designer or a company should look when wanting to get their game into distribution? What are some things that are helpful to make sure they have and that are on that? Scott, can you take us out?
Yeah, I would say first of all, a business plan and a realistic understanding of the market as you're approaching it. Last year, there were 6,000 new game titles that were released. on the market, your average game store is picking up maybe a couple hundred of them. So that means distribution has to be very discerning and very picky about what we bring in and catalog. So there are different channels available. Distribution is one of many. You can do direct sales online, you can do direct sales to retail. There's a lot of different channels, and distribution is just one of them. So don't fixate on one is another thing I would say.
Katie?
I would definitely, as far as like producing the product, make sure you have UPC numbers that are clearly identified and valid, right? Case pack quantities are also going to be very important for both direct retail and distribution. A retailer on a brand new game cannot handle 10 units of one brand new game that no one has ever heard of. The smaller the case packs, the better. 4 to 6 units per case pack is ideal, and then you're going to want to sell in case pack quantities to both the retailer and the distributor. Also, if you're planning to sell online, make sure or even in other territories, make sure the EU, for example, has a bunch of new regulations that their products all have to have as far as labeling goes. Make sure you're up to date on all of that information, because your product will not be viable in other territories if you don't, and that's a horrible waste of production time. And also complimentary demo copies. The best way to sell a board game is to sit down and play a board game. So what retailers find extremely helpful is you providing them a complimentary copy that they can open up and put on display. All the distributors offer demo programs that when you sell directly through distributors, and then retailers are also going to look at that as well. So a business plan that includes that kind of marketing budget, knowing that you're going to basically open up a copy and give it away for free to make sure your game gets played.
And Chris?
I would take a step back and just say, for most of the people in this room, the first step is getting the game out there, right? Hard to get it on shelves if you don't have it. And so I would just say, first thing for you guys to think about is what are you taking to the distributor or to the store, and how do you make that happen? The two most viable routes are crowdfunding, you do it yourself, or pitching. You take it to a publisher and try to get them to make it. We're focusing more on sort of the steps after that today, but just to know that there are sort of equally viable routes for getting that game made and then potentially even produced yourself that would come sort of even before all this stuff. And if you guys do have questions about that at the end, we can touch on that as well.
And what's fun on that point too is we've been trying to do more of those panels at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
So we had our tabletop game design panel was on Thursday, and then we had the crowdfunding one yesterday, and then we have the pitch panel on Sunday. So as we try to get more of these tracks going on, definitely some of these things. So that's a great point to bring up, Chris, which is good. Carol?
I would also like to add the game mostly needs to sell by itself. So a good packaging that is telling the people what they will find in the box and from whom it is created. So who will play your games and why. So all that needs to be communicated in the best way possible on the box. And of course, the cover design. So you pick up a box from the shelf and either it hits or it doesn't. So make sure you communicate whatever you want, what your game is, in the cover design.
So funny enough, Scott and I had this chat yesterday about the cover. You want to?
Yeah, the way I put it, the way I would describe it is there's two complications. First thing is the spine needs to attract attention, because most of your games are going to be on the side, right? They're on their side. They're not looking face on to everybody. I can tell a funny story about that, but I won't. See me after. So the second thing is, if I pull a game out of the shelf, what's the first thing I do? I look at the cover, right? If the cover's intriguing, I'm going to turn it over and see what's on the back. And if I see something I like, maybe I'll buy this. So my simple phrase is, the cover makes me want to turn it over, and the back makes me want to buy it.
Specifically, I'd like to make sure everyone's aware, like the number of players and the time is extremely important to have both on the spine and either the box top or the backs, because when you walk into a game store, you have a very specific topic in mind that you were looking for. And if you can find, oh, I need a 2-player game, or I need a solo game, or a game that has this and that, if you can find it on the box, it's much more likely to take the next step to be getting purchased.
And then even adding on to that, anything that's required for the game. Like if I'm buying an RPG book, I need to know what dice I need. I need to know if I need a character sheet pack or whatever, or if I can get one downloaded or whatever. So anything that's needed to play the game needs to be identified on the back, is what I would advise.
And also the categorization. So whenever you think this is a family game, make sure it is a family game. Because the family is not used to play games that are, let's say, with a duration 60 minutes plus. So they like to have it short, simple, starting within 5 minutes after opening the box. So that's what you need to be aware of, because what we consider easy light is not easy light for most of the people out there.
So that's kind of an interesting point, right? Because there are certain stores where, like Mox Boarding House, for example, they're very good about having different categories for here's family games, here's heavy games, here's strategy, role-playing games. Are there ways that, when talking to retailer distribution, that you can help do that? And like, what are some tools you can use as a publisher to make sure that those reps and those buyers know that's what's going on? Chris, any thoughts on that at all? Or?
I mean, I think everyone here who's interested in this is a creative. Everyone's a storyteller at some level. And remember that you're telling a story with that box, right? So if you're pitching a family game or a kid's game, a hobby game, a strategy game, whatever it is, everything's a part of that story. And so you'll want to find art that sort of communicates that. You'll want to sort of clearly say it when you're able to clearly say it. Boss Monster Jr., a family game, a kid's game, whatever helps there. And then I think one of the things you're probably hearing from everyone, and I'll just sort of blatantly say it, we're sort of in the best of times and worst of times for making games. Best of times because more games are being made now than at any point in human history. Maybe more games produced in the last 10 years than all of the rest of human history combined. But that's also the worst of times because it's incredibly challenging to get that game out there and noticed. And so you really don't want to miss a beat on how you're putting that packaging together and how you're putting the marketing together for it. Just sort of wrapping all that together, try to tell your story of who you think this game is meant to be played by.
So kind of on that point too, and we brought up some stuff, so everyone here has roughly had some touch in crowdfunding and then traditional marketing and things like that. How important, as we look right now, is a game, if it was good on crowdfunding, is that still going to do well in retail? Is it still going to do well in distro? What was your thoughts on that?
Not necessarily.
Sure. Yeah.
Anyone can create a crowdfunding campaign. It doesn't mean that the game will resonate with players. I think the best way to make sure that your crowdfunding gets into retail is to have a retailer pledge, right? That is available, where you're giving retailers a discount if they buy it on your Kickstarter campaign or any of the other crowdfunding campaign places, and then it'll entice them to bring your game into the store, and then you just make sure it gets played, right? There's no better way to sell a game than it is by playing the game.
That's true. What I would also add is that if you go for a Kickstarter or any crowdfunding platform, make sure that you have good calculation behind it. Because if you only sell it through crowdfunding, it's fine, do whatever you want. But as soon as distribution comes into play, so another layer to pick up, they have to do their margin. If they cannot do their margin, they will not pick up your game, so it will never end up in retail space.
So what are some of the standard margins right now for retail and distro?
I don't think I'm allowed to say that.
Oh,
I am. When you sell a game direct to a retailer, the retailer is going to look for Keystone or 50% off the MSRP. They need their costs after shipping to be as close to 50% off MSRP as humanly possible, because they pay for rent, employees, the marketing of them. They're going to help you market their product. So they need, in order for your game to take up this much of their very limited shelf space, they want 50%. So you need to calculate that into your cost of goods and your P&Ls for the products.
Just to jump to the next level of that, Distribution looks for some margin themselves, right? So they're generally looking to buy it from you for something near 40% of MSRP, so that then they can make some money off that, because distribution bears tremendous costs
They do.
in warehousing, shipping, storing, insuring,
Sales reps.
employees.
Yeah.
And they are operating on actually what is a pretty tight margin, all things considered.
So that makes sense, and thanks Scott for that.
No, I can confirm, we have the thinnest margins in the.
There we go.
But everybody that you engage with, everybody that gets involved in the process gets a cut. So just be aware of that.
So if I'm a publisher, or I'm a game designer, and I want to get in touch with a distributor, how is the best way to do that?
The best way to get in touch, well, generally the way that we get submissions or people, first-time designers and stuff that are coming to us is through email. They send us a solicitation or ask if they can pitch their game, and I will generally listen to them. I think it's important because there's a lot of new talent out there, there's a lot of good games out there that aren't getting the attention that they deserve because they just don't have the access. So most often what I'll get is a solicitation of some kind, maybe a link to a video or something like that where I can go and watch. And if you are sending a video, don't send me a trailer, because a trailer doesn't tell me anything about how the game is played or how well I think it'll do in the industry. It would need to be some kind of like an overview of how the game is played, for instance. And the sell sheet should tell me everything that we've already talked about, the UPC, the SKU, case count.
Oh, creating a sell sheet
Yeah.
is an important aspect
Oh,
of creating.
we'll get there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's something that you need to be aware of. And then if a distributor tells you no, don't be heartbroken. It's just a matter of a calculation. So it may be that you are too early in the game to really get into distribution. Maybe your better route is to go with a consolidator or direct sales until the point where you've built up an audience that's sufficiently large for retail to get involved.
One possible hook to sweeten that deal is to offer exclusivity. They still may not find the numbers compelling, but that's something that would make it slightly more compelling if they know they're not going to have to compete with anyone else to distribute that game should it blow up.
And so one of the ways to help find a lot of the emails they brought up too is to look at trade organizations like Gamma. So if you go and join Gamma and do all that, they have different tracks where you can do different things. And so being able to find all the contacts from like GTS and ACD and stuff like that is a good way to go. And so then on that, along with email, would you say that like conventions and trade shows is another place where you can take pictures on that kind of stuff, or how does that best work?
Yeah. Usually you're gonna have to get me by email in order to get me at a convention too, though, because I'm just running around the whole time.
Sure.
There's no place to find me per se, you know. So pre-arrange things. Don't surprise somebody at a convention with a pitch. You want to make sure that you say, hey, I have this idea. Can we get a meeting at some point?
And so Carol, at like Spiel, how does that work?
Oh yeah, I mean, actually we have around 900 exhibitors and most of them are publishers. So we have people with, let's say, 2 by 3 meter space or something like that, just demoing their game. But that's exactly the spot to be, because when you're at a convention, people from distribution, from localization, from other countries coming around, stopping by and get hooked by your game. That's perfect. That's exactly what you want. And they will also see if there is an audience for it, because other people stop by and listen to what you say and play your game, enjoy it, and that's exactly what they want to see. Because if people are enjoying your game, smiling, having fun, that's it. That sells.
That's great. So
I
a
can
lot.
confirm that.
Yeah. You're right.
I brought a few publishers on from Spiel last year, no, the year before. So.
As I said, that's the place to be, or it's Gen Con, or it's Origin, or whatever. But go to shows, demo your game, find people that enjoy it. Take some pictures, because when you send over the pitch and they see people enjoying it at a convention, that's perfect.
Yeah.
And we, established publishers, are stalking those booths
Always.
as well. I mean, it's hard to find really good games, and so when you're at a convention, you're always looking at what new people to the industry are bringing.
And the word of mouth created from conventions. If someone's excited and keeps telling other people about the products that you've made, it will eventually get to bigger people. In each individual publisher also will have some sort of intake form where you can present your ideas. My suggestion to that would be to make sure that you're pitching your game to the right publisher, right? Like each publisher tends to pick a lane and they produce what they produce really well. Like you wouldn't take a hardcore hobby game to the UMP, for example. They're much more suited for family games and party games and stuff like that. Critical Role and Daring to Press probably would not take a quick, easy, light party game because we're more fantasy, more RPG, stuff like that. Make sure that you find the publishers that focus and do your games really well because they'll have the biggest audience for you and they'll be more likely to look for the games that you are presenting to them.
So what kind of trade shows are good for that? I know we talked about Gamma Expo and Gen Con. Are there other shows that are more trade, like where retailers are at or distributors are at?
There's also, if you're doing the party family game, there is a show called Astra, the American Specialty Toy Store Association. That's going to be all your mom and pop toy stores that are primarily toy, but they all have a wall of games. And in the last couple of years, Astra has done a really good job of having an entire section of their show floor to be first-time exhibitors. So all of the retailers know to check out that space because that's where the newest of the new are going to be, and that gets you a really great opportunity to get face-to-face with a bunch of retailers who are specifically looking for kid-friendly party family games. And there's also Origins as well.
And then, would you think the Toy Fair for New York is a good one too, or how does that kind of come into the mix of it?
So I have to admit I haven't been to Toy Fair since COVID, so it's been a few years, but back in the before times, I would not recommend Toy Fair. It was much more closed booth, you had to have an appointment. It's much more mass-centric, it's much more established partners. I would start with more of the indie cons, personally. It doesn't mean you won't get lucky if you're walking the show floor at Toy Fair, but that one is definitely much more geared towards mass.
And if you're interested in international, then you have to go to Spiel.
There we go.
Because, as we already heard, they are all at Spiel, and they know why, because they meet the whole industry. And when I say the whole industry, I'm talking about publishers coming from all 5 continents, more than 50 nations. So it's really worldwide. So if you're interested in getting your game out into different languages, go to Spiel. But be aware, make appointments ahead of time with whoever you want to meet, because otherwise you will hear, sorry, but the person you want to talk to is fully booked.
And I would also just recommend if you have a local convention, go to that. If you have specialty conventions, search it out. If you're making a miniatures game, Adepticon is a natural fit for you. If you're making a family party game, Adepticon is not a fit for you.
It's true.
So just be aware of what you're going for, what you're targeting, and where those places are.
Conventions also frequently have speed dating events where you sit down with publishers, you get 5 to 10 minutes to show them your game. And also local organizations like Unpubs will often, at least once or twice a year, try to organize, usually online speed dating, where you're getting to put your game in front of publishers.
So along with that, when you're getting ready to pitch to the distro and retail, we talk about sell sheets. So I obviously did a video that we're going to share. But having that sell sheet is very neat, and I know there's a million different ways on we're going to include everything there. So what is good for a sell sheet? What's good to do? What's good to don't? Chris, take us out.
We do sell sheets for every one of our games. The goal is to convey the most amount of information with the least amount of words. And so we have a box which is product info, which just includes things like components, MSRP, suggested age range, time and player count, and then a lot of the sort of the UPC, the more business codey type stuff. And then we'll generally try to restrict the rest of the text on that sheet to bullet points that are quick and snappy and clear and not BSing what the game's about. And we do lots of visuals. Renders if we don't have good photography if we have it.
The 5-second pitch. Blank is a blank where blah, 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 right? The elevator pitch, because most of the time that's going to be the first impression, is that 10-second elevator pitch of what your game is, who it's for, what does it do, how is it played. That's really important on a sell sheet.
A couple things I would add is if you have, for distribution in particular, we want images and content that we can also use on our website to promote the game to retailers. So a Dropbox or a Google Drive or whatever that has accessible images, advertising, and marketing collateral for us to make use of is a really important thing to have. Secondly, the sell sheet should have the bullet points, but you need to also have a section somewhere where we can get to it that is copy and pastable text about like the lore or whatever the game is, concise, but still there, so that we can add that in too. Doesn't have to be in the sell sheet.
And to build on that too, so like what he's getting at, and I literally do this right part of my time every day, is making sure that that folder has a photo of the box top. That's what you get the box rendered. Board Game Geek loves having just the flat image of the box image. So when you see things on there, Eric Martin will always go, hey, make sure I just have just the art image, because they don't want to have the tilt on that. When you're doing that, having nice photos with the box components. You get a white background, providing a PNG and a JPEG. Having about 6 images, because they'll put that on the retailer portal, on the B2B side, and then also usually on the front end on the web store there too. Having a nice thematic shot, where it's lifestyle of people playing it, or just hands playing it, and then having a cool artistic photo too. Those things all there all help, because it lets them have what they could go for, and then all of that too. And then a big thing that Scott brought up was having like an e-commerce little section, 2-3 sentences, where they could take that and put it in there, because if not, they'll just take some of the bullet points you provide on the sell sheet, and now that's going to be front facing, and maybe you don't want that. So they need a little bit of text they can provide to put on there where the retailer can read it, or that if they put it on the shop that's going on. So
With the new regulations on the EU, you now have to have a very clear image of the back of the box with all of the identifiers that the EU also replies. So make sure you've got the box top, 3D renderings with multiple angles. We call it the PR shot, which is all the components and it's laid out really well, and then box back. You have to have the back of the box as well.
So funny enough,
Distribution wants that too.
Yeah.
Funny enough, having worked at a couple UK companies and then US companies, everybody has a different name for that shot.
Yeah, I know.
So
What drives me nuts.
the
The
current one that I like for this is calling it the box spill.
Spill.
Right, so the box spill, so it has the box and then everything on that. And
Just dumped it out.
I'm gonna use that now.
Yeah, right.
It's so fancy at work.
It's much fancier, right? So yeah, I was like, box spill, I'm like, I love that. He's like, we're just, oh yeah, we need a full PR shot.
Yeah.
But it's like, that doesn't really, what's a PR shot? But it's like, when you say box spill, you're like, great, it's all the stuff on there, you're doing some of it there. So yeah, kind of a neat little bit. Yeah, so we're at that almost half hour mark. There was Q&A. I have more questions, but if we have questions you want to ask, and I'm seeing nods on that. So fantastic. So what we'll do, I don't want to hear your life story. I don't want you to be character. Please raise your hand and then ask your question. A little bit of context is fine, but don't go on too long. Thank you very much. So we'll do that. So hands up. Sure.
Okay, this might be the next question, but when reaching out to a publisher, how much power does the publisher have over like altering the mechanics of your game?
Good
That
question.
is a great question,
Great question.
actually.
Answer.
Want me to do it?
Yeah, I don't know.
So for that, it really depends on what you're doing, right? So like, that's kind of more for a like if you're pitching to a publisher, and it really depends what you're doing, right? So like, if you've got a game that you're pretty much set and it's going to be good to go, you can be like, hey, this game, I like where it's at, you can sign that. But if they want to sign it, maybe change the art, change the theme, do all that, that's stuff you can discuss in that, either in that initial meeting, or from there, they go, oh my gosh, we love this engine, but we have a really cool IP that we could put for this, or we have something else, then they'll have that discussion. Let's look back to their team, and their team can kind of mess around, but once you're doing that, depending on the contract you've signed, everything's there, it may be a completely different game, or if it's totally complete, you may just go outright and go, it's gonna be a great game for our catalog to pick it up.
And if you're dead set on certain things in your game and that publisher wants to change them, that's not the publisher for you then, right? Like maybe try pitching it to someone else and seeing what they say before you sign that contract.
What I've also seen, in Europe, it's very common that you have a game design, but that's not finished. So they pitch it very early on, and then the developers in-house and the author, the external designer, they go back and forth until they both agree that's a good game. And then they decide on the theme, on the box, on all that. Because, as I said, it's a joint venture from the designer and the in-house developers.
Awesome. Thank you for the question.
So I recently self-published my game, and I guess I'm really curious about the biggest like pros and cons of basically remaining independent opposed to getting involved with the publisher, and how that could impact like relationships with distributors and other retailers.
Chris?
Congrats, first off, that's awesome. Well, so the pros and cons boil down to very simply for you, your cut. So you are the publisher now, right? Which means instead of getting a royalty on that game, you're getting all the sales revenue for that game. The downside is you're, of course, losing out on that publisher's reach, that publisher's marketing budget, that publisher's connections. When we go to distribution with a game, we know every distributor we work with is going to buy an allotment of that game. Sometimes we're really happy with that allotment, sometimes we're really sad. But we know we're going to get those games out on shelves. It's just we've got a proven track record, and publishers, our distribution partners, are always willing to take a shot on us. We may not get a reorder of that game, but it's sort of a guaranteed placement to some degree. We've earned that spot in the industry. In terms of distribution, I'll probably let Scott answer the question of what the pros and cons in terms of self-publishing are.
Yeah, well, the con obviously is you're an unknown, right? So it's a matter of getting to know whether or not you have a business plan. If it's a passion product for you and it's kind of like this is my one-off thing, probably not best to pursue a distributor. At that point, you may want to look at a consolidator, or that's another tier in the industry where they take a lot of self-published or small press things and they bundle them together for distribution and for retail sales. But if you are like intent on a business, what distribution really is looking for is partnerships over products per se. Product is not the lead; it's the partnership, like what Chris was talking about. Brotherwise has earned a spot in the industry. We're always going to give their stuff a chance because they have a proven track record, as we'll lay it out.
Good job, Chris.
We got lucky. We got really lucky.
Yeah, and then you have other products like Dagger Heart from Darrington, which brings an audience with it. So there's a lot of, it's low risk proposition for distribution to do something like that. And we have an established relationship with Darrington. We know the quality of their products. We know what's behind it and what's driving it. So that's the main thing.
I would step one level above that for your question though, and say the gaming industry is at a point right now where the problem is not good games. We are drowning in good games.
Yeah.
The problem is bandwidth.
Shelf space.
Shelf space.
Retailers, they just can't learn them all.
Mhm.
So the challenge to you, and I'll let you answer your own question, challenge to you is, do you have enough bandwidth to get this game visible to the people you want to get it visible to? You could do that through social media, you could do it through a Kickstarter, crowdfunding, you can do it through an established publisher. You've got all these pathways to do this, but the problem that we're trying to solve right now in the industry is not game quality. There have been periods where that's been, something we've needed to solve. The problem is bandwidth. It's a fire hose of games right now, and even in the time we've been in the industry, the time, Katie and I have been in the industry, this dynamic has changed tremendously. What we thought would have been a guaranteed winner 10 years ago, not anymore. Now it's just one more game in a pile of games that's out there. That's not to say don't pursue this passion, by the way. I think it's totally possible to succeed in this industry. It just means remember what the challenge is right now.
And then, and that's spot on 100%. I think one of the main things I want to bring up too is that with your self-publishing versus a retailer or going into distribution and things like that, how big is your garage? Because you want to make sure that at a certain point, like if you've got a 5,000 per game coming in, oh my gosh, your garage can't fit that. You're not gonna be packing things from UPS, shipping that out, right? And so finding things like a fulfillment center where they can come out with those things there. That's a whole new thing that's emerging too in the industry, where you can work with these companies that can help ship it out to distro, ship it out to retailers. You can do that. They will get their cut, which is good. And that by itself already pulls a lot of work off your plate. So now you could work with them. They'll take their cut like they would from our warehousing, but now they can ship it out and do those things too. And so like the quartermaster logistics and bridge distribution and those things there, even PSI, right? And they do all those things there. And that's stuff where it's like, that helps you because then you can do a lot of the sales rep work, you can do those things there, but they'll handle the actual housing of it, shipping it out, making sure that's being cared for. And there's, with so many games coming out and so many different companies, everybody's on their own different thing. Like right now, the guys from Stoneplate, they're traveling the world and just kind of working remote. They make sure their stuff's shipped out and they're all good to go. Or some people have an office and they're working out of there. So we're at a very unique time where like almost anything is possible. So it kind of depends on what you want to be doing.
And I also like to add, you're one person. So you are your salesman, your marketing guy, your accounting guy, your logistics guy. So everything in one person, and the game designer. So it's quite hard to fit that all under one hat. Mm-hmm. So if you can do it, perfect. I congratulate you. But if you can find support, that's much better.
Just a humorous anecdote to illustrate this. In the early days of Boss Monster, we wanted to sell into Barnes & Noble. And we met with them, they're like, this is great, we're gonna sell it, this is awesome. We're gonna send you our intake form and guidance. It's like, great, cool, good stuff. We were working with maybe 1 or 2 distributors at that time. That intake thing was like 40 pages long, and it involved re-stickering our games with UPCs that worked for Barnes & Noble, re-stickering the boxes, and I was sitting there in my living room with a pile, like just 1,000 Boss Monster units around me. And I was like, what the hell am I doing? I can't do this. This is crazy. And we called PSI the next day, and they became our mass market distributor from then on out. So it is, there's sort of a careful what you wish for side of this, and I'm glad we wished for that.
And because every retailer has a different routing guide. Barnes & Noble's labeling requirements and box requirements are going to be very different than Target's or Walmart's. And if you get those wrong, you get chargebacks. Yeah. So they charge you for the time it takes them to redo the labels or the boxes. So that's all going to come out of your cut as well if you don't take painstaking time to go through that 40-page document and make sure the pallets are wrapped correctly, make sure they're weighted correctly, make sure your box count, that each box isn't too heavy for their routing guide, and everyone has a different one. So the distributors are going to be experts in that field, and that's going to be an advantage in addition to the reach as far as the distributors go, because they're already in touch with everywhere you want your game to be.
Yeah. Great question.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. More hands up.
Hi, my question is for Katie specifically. Working with Critical Role and Darrington Press, they are no longer this like upstart group, it's this massive company. Do you see any similarities now, where they are now, to like indie publishing that they're still going through, and what do you see different from what indie publishers that they have the boom that they've been so successful?
Sure, I mean, we are still an indie publisher, right? We're working on our first giant hit, and we sold way more units way too quickly, and now we're out of stock, right? So like that's a problem with a breakout game, is knowing how many units to print, because the worst thing a game can do is go out of stock when it's hot, right? Because you don't want the consumer fan base to find his game instead, and then
yes, we do.
And then you miss out on that opportunity. So it's been really interesting to see this department, the Darrington team, grow from just being an indie publisher that publishes on our own website to now opening up all those retail doors and getting the excitement from the Barnes & Nobles and the international reps and all of that sort of stuff. It's exciting. It's a lot of work. You need a bigger team in order to do it, because we can't just do things one way anymore. But I think there's a lot of opportunity for all indie publishers to go this way, but there's just growing pains along the way with any company.
And I'd be happy if you bought both.
We are on all ships here.
Yeah, right? But like you want to keep that fandom, you want to keep that growth.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just really hard to predict how many units of a game they're going to do.
Well,
It's
just
just
make
really
Amazon
hard.
shows. It'll be good.
Yeah.
Very cool. Great question.
You mentioned that we have this great volume of great games, and that the problem is getting them on shelves and having
Yes.
enough shelves. What about the consumer? How is the consumer responding to the flood of games? And is it getting oversaturated? Are people getting overwhelmed?
Part enough on that. Like I would not say the buying habits have slowed down too much. I think gamers they're going to buy what they're going to want to buy, right? And I think while we've got, oh my gosh, I love board games, I love role playing games, I love card games. Card games right now are seeing a whole renaissance. Like we're seeing a huge amount of stuff going on from Magic and Flesh and Blood and One Piece and Pokemon and everything there. And at the same time, board games are doing their stuff. Where the change is, and I think the panelists could be on this, is that there's a trend right now. I think we're going away from big miniatures box games, and we're kind of moving now into these like cute and comfy games. So we're seeing a lot of those things. That's kind of a big thing on that. But I think games are still being bought.
I would say a price change has occurred
Yes.
within the last couple of years. The $79.99, the $89.99 boxes are not moving as quickly. I would say the sweet spot for a medium weight game would be $49.99. And I would do everything within your power to stay under the $50 mark. Retail shelves are moving more that way. Not only are those boxes smaller so they can fit many more games per shelf, but that seems to be the sweet spot for the hobby gamer. For a family game or a party game or a kids game, the highest you want to be is $24.99. The mom at Target is going to want to pick up that $20 game that she can keep her kids entertained with and not spend too much money. So that's where I think in the last maybe 5-10 years the price point has come into play.
I do think, I don't think I'm imagining this, I think we have the numbers to back this up, that we're seeing shorter sales tails for games which, the sales tail sort of reflects how fast and long it takes that sales numbers to drop down. We're seeing that shortening a little bit as the next new thing comes out, but the biggest impactor, I think, that is consumer, well, it's not even consumer up, it's really retailer up, which is risk aversion. So retailers and distributors simply have too many titles in front of them to make informed, accurate predictions of sales. And so they're ordering less, which means you've got less on shelves, less shelf presence. And retailers, because they just don't know what's gonna hit, they naturally tend to lean towards evergreens, which is what we call established constant sellers. And if you're a publisher like Brotherwise that happens to have an evergreen like Boss Monster that you can sort of reliably move, you immediately have a leg up. But even that doesn't necessarily count for our new games. So we've had, up for the first 6 years of our existence, we didn't have a single bomb. Every one of our games was a bestseller. And then all of a sudden, we started having a couple bombs, games which we just did not reprint after the first printing. And I've heard that from other colleagues as well. In terms of what this means for you though, you gotta shoot your shot. It doesn't necessarily change what you're doing as an independent designer publisher.
It's a great question.
I had 2 questions. What was the spiel thing that you were talking about? And would you say that there's a market for horror, or is that like not a good need to have a company?
I'll do the horror one really quick, and then Carol, you guys feel. We are in a horror rise right now.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of move for horror in role-playing games and board games and stuff like that. I mean, White Wolf is back now, right? So like that's been a thing, and a buddy of ours right now is running cool Ghostland games on Kickstarter, which has been really fun. So that is definitely a trend we are seeing go up. But also know that when trends are happening, it does take us like a year to 18 months to make a game. So while trends are happening right now, it's important to think about what's going to be happening in 2 years. And then for Spiel.
Yeah, you want to know what Spiel is, right? You were so...
Yes.
Okay, so Spiel is the world's largest event for tabletop games, role-playing games, miniature games, trading card games, cosplay. So we have them all. And Russ described it yesterday as a festival, and I like that. because it's quite different from what you have here as, let's say, tabletop conventions. So here you have small exhibitor spaces where you can buy all stuff. And at our show, the exhibitor space is where you play all that stuff and you can buy the stuff. But first you play, so you have that direct experience. So it's more like a festival, because they all build shiny booths where you can enter, where you can dive directly into the theme, into the world of that game and experience it. And later on you shop it, that's it. So it's about, last year we had 204,000 attendees in 4 days.
It's bigger than Comic-Con.
And it's also very international. So as I already said, we have people exhibiting from all over the world, but we also have people visiting from all over the world. We have more than 80 nations being there. So you can find that indie designer from Vietnam is here, a first-time visitor and exhibitor, Vietnam. We also have Korean board games there. We have Japanese board games there. So we also have an African exhibitor. So it's really, really international, and you will find what you want to find. So if you're looking into that, I don't know, that a new trading card game, it will be there. What is also very interesting about Spiel is it's late October. And so it's kicking off the festival season. So the people really, so the publisher, they try to release their game at Spiel. Because if it's selling at Spiel, they have an indicator for the holiday season.
Awesome, Rich, thank you. We're at like the 5-minute mark here, so if we have another,
just what's your favorite game the last like 3 months each of you played? What's
Sure.
been hot? What have you guys enjoyed aside from your own games?
For me, it's Flamecraft. Hardware Alchemy. You gotta help cute dragons get jobs in a fantasy town, and you gotta get the extra components. So it's got like the wooden steak pieces and the little potion bits, and then the gold coins. It's amazing.
For me, it's a very tough question, because I play so many games and with so many different groups of people that I always try to say I love to play games that fit and suit the group, because I have a really strategic group, I have a fun playing group. With the fun playing group, we play Hitstar. Hitstar is a wonderful game about music. It's amazing. With the strategic one, we play more things like Tapestry or something like that. But there is not that one game that I love right now.
Fair enough.
For me, it's been going through the game with the absolute clumsiest title award, and it is The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Rings trick-taking game.
It's so good! My company sells it, go buy it.
It is a really good game.
It does have a title though.
Yeah,
It's the name.
the
Thanks,
worst
thanks
title.
licenses.
Yeah. My oldest is going to be 9, so he's just graduated into more little in-depth games. So I know it's not new, but we just played Azul for the first time, and it was awesome to see him like actually get it. So that's where my life is. We're into the roll for it, the Azuls, the Taco Cats, all of those. Oh my God! And they now have a sword fighting one that comes with fake swords. We've been playing that one, yeah, that sort of stuff.
Chris?
I'm incredibly cliche. With the family, we've been playing Flip 7.
It's so good.
And with the gang, it's been Arc Nova.
Nice, that's really good.
So cliche, but it's just so much fun.
Fun, that's the point,
Yeah.
right? The
Good.
point is fun.
And then for our last question, Tina?
If you're like starting out something new, you have a shoestring budget. I'm kind of curious on where you would think in today's market would be a great place to put that. Is it like reaching out to collaborators, live streams, things like that, sending people to conventions on your team? Where would you do that in the next like 2 years?
Marketing?
I'm sorry?
Is it a marketing question? Or
Yeah, marketing question. So like, especially in the RPG space, like where would you get the best bang for your buck when you only have so many bucks?
Okay.
I mean, for me, it's play space. If your game's not being played, it's not being purchased. So the more tables you can get at, the more butts and seats, part
I
of the
know, but
reference.
butts and seats is the way to go,
Because, yeah, it's a great team, yeah. The more people play your game, they're gonna go off and tell their friends that they have this great opportunity playing their game, and then they're gonna play it, and then so on and so forth.
And doing that at like a Game Hole Con, or a Gary's Con, or a Gen Con,
Yes.
organize those kind of things there. Local shows are great, because you can build up and you can kind of get that going, take your photos, put it on social media, and do all that. But if you go to the larger shows, and go out there, then you can line up press interviews, and you kind of post things there, and they're gonna want to check that stuff out. So we can chat after the show, and I can marketing off, so. Cool, I think, are we good? I'm ready to get the wrap it up, or I got? One more question, let's do it up. Who's got one more?
If we have time, but you guys all get your jobs.
Oh.
Real quick, just backgrounds.
Sure. So first off, if you're looking for a job in the gaming industry, you should go on Facebook to the Tabletop Game Jobs group on Facebook. I run that. It's about 20,000 people that are in that group. We had a panel yesterday about getting jobs in the gaming industry, which was great. I know, full sales pitch, right? I got my start by being a volunteer for Privateer Press, and I used to run tournaments and demos at their stuff, and I did that in high school and college. And then I essentially went to like Gen Con for the run demos for them and everything there. And then they had a hiring for a retail support specialist. So I ended up applying for that and getting that job. And that was just calling game stores, making sure they had promo cards and stuff like that. And that's how I got my start in the industry.
For me, it was much the same. So I started demoing games at conventions, organized smaller shows in Germany, educated people about games, how to use them in kindergartens and schools. I met the CEO of Cosmos back then. I don't know why, but he got hooked on me, so I ended up in Cosmos.
I started out as in a soul-crushing job where I was designing games as a creative outlet to keep myself sane. And through that, I met some people in the industry and found out about a job that was available at GTS. And I went over there as a sales rep. And then a couple of years later, I moved into the management side of things.
I answered an ad on Craigslist. Back in 2012, that was still a reputable place to find a job, and I needed a sales job. The company name was not listed, and I took a 50-50 chance of getting murdered and emailed my personal information to this little company called USAopoly, and friends applied me through Craigslist. That is how I got a phone call back, and offered a job to sell this little game called Telestrations to retailers. So that was my first job.
I cannot beat that story.
I know, it's a pretty good one.
When two brothers did a Kickstarter for Boss Monster.
They're very wise.
Garage business for like 6 years, and then we managed to go full time on it.
What were you doing before you designed the game?
I have a PhD in ecology and evolutionary biology.
There's a lot of PhDs in this industry, actually. You would be surprised.
That's awesome. What a great question to end on. Awesome. So on a quick note, as we go down the row, say where they can find you, remember the thing, and do all that. And Carol?
Where would you like to find me? Anywhere, Facebook. It's LinkedIn. Mostly LinkedIn. So find me there. I'm listed there.
Scott?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, under my own name, and then GTS is also in the Gamma directory.
Great.
Same thing, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah.
We have a game submissions tool at brotherwisegames.com, which you can find on the contact us page, and you can generally get me at bwisegames@gmail.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out to this panel. I'm glad we could make it happen, and hope everybody learned a lot. All right, awesome. Great, we're going to hear you So have a great rest of your Saturday at Comic-Con.